The idea that there was one singular form of modernity, Western modernity, there are no other forms of modernity, is a nonsense.
So what is meant by Chinese modernization to your understanding?
Modernization is the term that is used for the economic transformation of countries from essentially a rural existence to an industrial and post-industrial existence. The first model, I think, of modernization was the Industrial Revolution in Britain, in my own country, in the 19th century. And then it spread across Europe, United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and they all industrialized during the period of the 19th century. By the First World War, you had a range of countries, all Western with one exception, which were industrializing, relatively speaking. The one exception was Japan. So basically not much had changed after the Second World War. So then you get the great moment then, which is the decolonization of the majority of the world's population, national liberation, independence and so on. And then how do you move on? How do you start industrializing extremely poor countries? Over time they found a way to do it. And now we've seen the great phenomenon of the last 70 years, the modernization of many developing countries, of which China is the most important example, but it's one of many. This is a huge global phenomenon. Modernization for these countries after the Second World War inevitably involved, including for China for sure, borrowing and learning from other experiences, with modernization becoming much more widespread. The consequence of this would be a range of new modernities. China's first phase wasn't so successful, but it was, grew at about 5%. Modernization 2.0 is that it is a hybrid of Western influence and Japan, etc., and an indigenous innovation, because it's impossible for modernization to be transplanted. That's why America's attempts to do it have all been disastrous. Now, Modernization 3.0, this is me giving you categorizing it for the purpose of talking to you, China's in a different position. China now has arrived at more or less the technological levels of the West. So China's now in a position to create its own modernization, think afresh, anew about what sort of modernization would it be appropriate for China, and it will obviously be imitated by other parts of the world in the process. So Modernization 3.0 now has probably a much larger Chinese content.
Do you think Chinese modernization has the capacity to actually go from strength to strength?
This is obviously going to be very important for China to ensure that the differences aren't so great. But I think China is a country that would have the historical and intellectual potential to sort that out. The idea that there was one singular form of modernity, Western modernity, there are no other forms of modernity, is a nonsense. And in fact, there will be many, many different modernities, because modernity is a product of history and culture, not just narrow economics and technology. Some countries, like China, is the most developed form of notion of civilization because it's built on a civilization. Many countries have this facet, but the problem is that colonization destroyed the continuity of countries. It's about respect for those who've been historically haven't mattered, who've been powerless and have been voiceless. And China's giving this possibility for these to become the new subjects of a different global society.
Are you suggesting that China is taking the lead in this process,
Yeah,
in
definitely.
this new trend?
Yeah. China's a very gifted leader, I think, in this context, definitely.